Sarkhan the Masterless, and 3 copies of Saheeli Sublime Artificer.
Yeah, and the big draw to that is there are just so many good 3-drop Planeswalkers here that lets you skip from 3 to 5 with those Mox Ambers we were talking about.
Yeah, there is still one. The other ones are 1 Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and then 2 Karn, Scion of Urza, as the last to round out the 18 Planeswalkers. Shawn, though, in Azorius aggro starts off on Dauntless Bodyguard. So early on, I think there's 3 Deafening Clarions in the main for Abe. They're probably his best cards in the matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one where if he doesn't have those or multiple early removal spells, he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah. And actually, it's working out really well for Abe. On the play on a 7-card hand, turn 2 shocks a Dauntless Bodyguard and has another shock in hand at the ready. I was going to say, the only card that would foil that would be a Danto Vanguard, but it is the card that Shawn has.
Yeah, I've heard that one's pretty good. It
is excellent against Jeskai decks. You can pay so much life for it.
Yeah, without Settle the Wreckage seeing a bunch of play, that card's just going to kind of get to do whatever it wants.
First Planeswalker here is Narset, Parter of Veils. So for those of you unfamiliar with the kind of Super Friends archetype and how it is different than Control in general, it functions like a Control deck, but because you get value out of so many Planeswalkers, these decks traditionally do not play any card draw. The archetype is about half removal spells and half Planeswalkers, and your card draw that you'd normally see in a Control deck is all gained through repeatedly using Planeswalkers.
Right, and here we even see that being really pushed by the fact that on this Narset minus, Corrigan chose to take a copy of Saheeli Sublime Artificer over Deafening Clarion. That is, if that doesn't send a message, I don't know what does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess on this board, the Clarion's just not very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm with you. It's just sort of a situation where does Corrigan think that over the course of the game that Saheeli will be worth more than the Clarion, and that is a loud message to send. Yeah,
we see History of Benalia from Shawn. I think the idea is that specifically against this Adanto Vanguard, making multiple 1/1s just has a lot of inherent value.
Right.
Getting a Knight token to join the party. There is the Saheeli leaving up mana for shock. And see, I love how this covers the board here, right? We shock the token, get a 1/1 to block the Adanto Vanguard, and then get to keep the Saheeli.
This is just such a big play, and doing it sorcery speed is even heads up because it makes something like Venerated Loxodon a little bit weaker.
Back to Dhaliwal we go. The Saga goes up to Chapter 2, gets another Knight token. So the swing could be for 3, and Abe can pick between actually letting his Planeswalker take 3 damage versus chumping with the servo.
In that spot, it really just comes down to how long Corrigan thinks that this Saheeli is going to stick around. If he thinks it's just going to get eaten by a removal spell, you can let it take the damage.
Yeah. Here is Sky Marcher Aspirant, and rather than attack, it's going to convoke out Venerated Loxodon. Three 1/1 counters. Also brings Shawn up to 8 permanents, but that is going to drop down to 7 on his next turn, so maybe a ways away from City's Blessing. And as I mentioned before, it's a deck that intends to play multiple Planeswalkers, so here we go. Let's have 2 Planeswalkers. Sarkhan is the 5-mana play. That is beautiful.
Honestly, Patrick Sullivan is our usual dragon token, but that honestly looks a lot like him. Maybe we should.
I didn't even notice until you pointed it out. So Sarkhan, 5-mana Planeswalker. Whenever a creature attacks Abe or one of his Planeswalkers, each dragon breathes fire at that creature, deals 1 damage to it. And then for +1, this is my favorite part and how it works in the deck. Each Planeswalker becomes a dragon until end of turn.
Ooh. This is big.
This is big. So Shawn, Baffling End takes care of the token. It's also big because now that token doesn't shoot the creatures as they attack.
Right. And on top of that, that's just a card that Shawn was likely not going to get a ton of value in this matchup with.
Yeah, Baffling End, usually we see out of the sideboard, Shawn has gone, instead of the traditional 4 Conclave Tribunals, is 1 and 1, splitting between the 2. And to swing in here. The 5/4 Knight is going to go at Saheeli. The rest of the creatures go towards Sarkhan.
So at this point, Abe just effectively has to choose which Planeswalker he wants to keep.
Yeah, it looks like he keeps the Saheeli around. No real way to keep the Sarkhan, so all the creatures get to attack that. Another aspirant from Shawn. It's permanent number 9.
Almost. Uh-oh.
We have Narset land. Well, Narset might be able to find another Planeswalker. And I really like what Saheeli's doing here, just with all these servos. Deafening Clarion and Sarkhan are in the top 4. So if you have the Clarion, the Loxodon and the Vanguard survive it.
That's such a big problem, but it's
Yeah.
hard to imagine these other cards doing that much here either.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarkhan minusing making a dragon I don't think is going to clean up the board, so you're kind of... It feels like you're looking to Clarion and then top deck into something else.
Right, that's probably what you're priced into here. You know, this Sarkhan the following turn, it's hard to imagine that being enough.
He's going to grab the Sarkhan. Two more lands in hand. He'll play 1. That's interesting. I guess Clarion does take care of all your servos.
Yeah, the trade-off here ideally is that Corrigan will get to keep one of his Planeswalkers around.
Do you think there's a chance that he's just trying... Can he race back? Just Sarkhan and dragging up his Planeswalkers?
I imagine Shawn's life total is too high at this point.
Yeah.
If Shawn were at something like 12, that's
Maybe.
probably doable, but it would take 5 Planeswalker attacks for this to actually kill Shawn.
Shawn gains the city's blessing. That's with Hallowed Fountain. Yeah, it feels like the safe way for him to play this is to just continue to whittle down these Planeswalkers. So 3 in the air. That's going at Narset. And then maybe perhaps the rest at Saheeli. No way to stop 3 in the air, so Narset's gone, and Abe gonna go ahead and let the rest of the board go as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess is there any way he can protect it? Even if he blocks the 2 biggest creatures.
It would take 2 chump blocks, and then
Still
Saheeli
takes
goes
5.
to 3.
Yeah, it still takes 5. No, if everything's going at it, right?
Oh, you're right,
Yeah.
you're right. I totally missed the Vigilant creature. That's my fault.
There's no way around it. Yeah, well, I was wondering because if he's going to cast the Clarion anyway, like, right, might as well chump your servos.
Right.
I actually like this play. If you're going to lose it anyway, I mean, you keep her on the servos, and he's going to get an extra Tomic for the Clarion, which was Shawn's follow-up play.
Well, he took the Sarkhan last turn.
Oh, wait,
if
no, he
memory
didn't take...
serves.
Yeah, he has the Sarkhan, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't think Shawn would have committed the Tomic if he had seen a Deafening Clarion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He'd have to top deck the Clarion. The problem is the board here just keeps getting bigger without a true sweeper. There's just not a way for Abe to stabilize this.
Yeah, and Abe knows 2 of his Deafening Clarions are in the bottom 6 cards of his deck, rather. So at that point, there's only 1 more Clarion even left in his deck.
Yeah, no way to shuffle. Can't crack a fetch land to reset it.
And this is a lot of the problem that these Jeskai decks will have is rather than having to deal with lightning strikes, they just have to answer every single creature or they're going to turn off the Super Friends card advantage engine.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's about this kind of board control thing of if you can get 3 Planeswalkers in play, once they're able to like stabilize for 1 turn, usually then the next turn gets better and the next turn gets better. Like the Super Friends deck is the kind of deck which snowballs really well, but gets snowballed against really well as at the same time.
Exactly. It is not very good at coming back.
Yeah. You know, once you get in a position where your opponent's attacking down your Planeswalkers, well, then you just keep top-decking more Planeswalkers, and they just keep getting attacked.
Exactly.
Kind of all goes back to that turn 2 Adanto Vanguard. Abe keeping a double shock into 3-mana Planeswalker hand. It was pretty great here, but then Adanto Vanguard was a turn 2 play, something you can't shock.
Yeah, there's a point where if Abe had maybe a Teferi Time Raveler to unsummon the Adanto Vanguard, that could have let Corrigan get some traction. But without something to get this Adanta Vanguard off the battlefield, it's just going to pressure every permanent that Corrigan puts on.
Even if you look at, sometimes you'll see Azorius players play Tithe Taker instead of Adanto Vanguard. Go back to this game, and even if that was Tithe Taker...
Yeah. Whoops.
We had a creature thrown away there.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the 2/1 right. Sarkhan tacked into a Sarkhan. The dragon. So this dragon just breathed. It's going to get 2 attackers. This was a huge misstep by Shawn.
Yeah, and you'll just get those in the earlier stages of a format, especially with something as high in complexity as this set
Every
is.
Planeswalker being an enchantment at the same time. I've noticed even just casting these, players will resolve a Planeswalker trigger, and I'm like, oh yeah, that Planeswalker's on the battlefield. Right.
Yep.
Right.
And playing on Magic Arena, I've had plenty of people try to say Chemister's Insight on their turn or something when I have a Narset in play.
Have you tried to cast Sorin's Thirst when your opponent has the Wanderer in play yet?
No.
That one's nice. You gain 2 life, though. It's
Do you know
fine.
how nice the Wanderer is with Command the Dreadhorde? It is.
Woo.
It is nice.
Yeah. I did that one with Sorin's Thirst. Then I just gained 2. I was like, what happened? Oh. Well, at least I got a consolation prize. Sarkhan, plussing up and attacking.
All right.
2 dragons in play for temporarily.
Not all right.
Not all right. That's just a land. So a misstepped attack from Shawn, but it looks like things are going to be okay.
Gonna find a way to power through this incredibly trying time.
Yeah.
At this
He has
point-
11 power, so he doesn't have... It's not lethal yet.
Yeah, at this point, Shawn likely is to send both of his creatures at the Sarkhan. Otherwise, the Sarkhan can just get cashed in for another 4/4 next turn.
That's interesting. I could see that one going both ways. He does do that play, and I guess because of the snowball. This is actually a good point. Because of how snowballing both ways, Jeskai Super Friends is. You never really have to go to ending the game. The correct attack against them is almost always their Planeswalkers, because once you clear the board, winning is very easy.
Exactly. They just won't have much left at that point.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if Corrigan had got to make another dragon and then drew another Sarkhan or something.
Yeah, then
and then all of a sudden
everything's taking 2.
Taking 3, because then the new Sarkhan makes a dragon.
Oh yeah.
So just all of a sudden Shawn can't attack anymore.
Yeah, that's would be a huge problem.
So a lot of it's just about reducing both players' resources. Like in this situation where Shawn effectively has 3 resources and creatures, and Abe has, we'll say, 1.5 between the dragon and the Sarkhan. Trading up to 1 resource for 1 resource is a good exchange for Shawn.
Even against Planeswalkers that it feels like you might be able to ignore, something like a Teferi, I'd still probably just err on the side of just keep removing them.
Yep, completely agree.
Send them home.
I almost messed up and quoted something that Teferi says when he's sent away, and I'm not going to do it.
Another History Finale from Shawn is too much. Azorius aggro in the hands of Shawn Dhaliwal takes the first game.
This does get better for Abe post-board.
All right, yeah. So looking at Abe's sideboard, he has, Dovin's Vetoes, the 4th Deafening Clarion, 2 Lava Coil, 4 Legion Warboss, 2 Lyra Dawnbringer, and 3 Prison Realm. So it's more spot removal.
Removal is the name of the game here.
Yeah, something like Prison Realm is... it's interesting, right? It's expensive, and against the Azorius deck, it's going to trade down pretty heavy on mana, but it is an answer to Adano Vanguard.
Yep. It does not feel very good, but if you can just pave the way to get a few activations on the same Planeswalker, that's going to be worth it. Mana advantages aren't exactly the fight that Corrigan's fighting here.
So what is it you want to look at removing for all the spot removal? I think there's 3 Spell Pierce that look like they're pretty easy cuts, but otherwise we might be looking at some of the Planeswalkers.
Yeah, the Planeswalkers are likely not very strong. There's a chance that if you're looking to lower your curve a little bit for these removal spells, you could shave some of your clunkier, more difficult to protect Planeswalkers, like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, which then could even make you look to shave something like Mox Amber.
Yeah, I was wondering which Planeswalkers we'd cut. I like Hero of Dominaria.
Narset Parter of Veils is one that is usually just 3 mana draw a card.
Right.
Which is not quite worth it.
I suppose which 3-mana draw card? I'm looking between Narset and Teferi. They're both 3-mana draw card planeswalkers. The unsummon just feels like it's worth more than getting to draw a specific card.
Yeah, the fact that Teferi also undoes some of the work on Shawn's side. Like, think back to that last game where we saw Corrigan have a turn 3 Narset against an Adonto Vanguard. How different would that game have been if it had been a Teferi instead?
I suppose the Teferi is seeming like one of those cards where you just don't ever cut it in any matchups.
Yeah, that's kind of...
It's fair enough.
I won't say the problem, but it definitely feels very similar to Goblin Chain Whirler, where it is a rate card with a hate card stapled onto it. So it just already kind of plays to what this Jeskai Super Friends is trying to do in snowballing an advantage and just sticking a bunch of permanents on the battlefield while keeping the opponent off of it. And on top of that, we may end up seeing some counter magic out of the sideboard of this Azorius deck that Teferi will just shut off.
Teferi is it's strong enough card. It's the kind of card I want to Noble Hierarch into it pretty bad in Magic formats, and I think we're going to see that too.
Yeah,
it's going to happen. When you start covering Modern in Louisville, where I would not be surprised to see that on turn 2 of a game.
Ugh.
No.
I don't want to gag into this microphone.
Turn 1 Noble. Then my opponent goes turn 1 Noble. Then I turn 2 Teferi, unsummon their Noble, draw a card.
And then the game is over.
And then the game's over.
Yep.
Ooh. That's fun.
How about this? All right. Turn 1 Noble.
Their company deck can't even play instant speed anymore? Ooh. Oh, wow. How nice is this?
What if you're on the play and they play an Expedition map on turn 1 and then Teferi bounces their Expedition map?
Oh, that's so nice.
Out of Tron?
That's so nice.
Isn't this such a fun thing?
You actually made Teferi relevant against Tron.
It unsummons Wormcoil tokens, too.
You still lose, even when you unsummon a Wormcoil token.
It's true, the other token attacks Teferi, but...
No, and then they're going to, play Ulamog. But you'll have taken that Wormcoil token down.
Your Tron opponent will go, I have to play at sorcery speed? Okay,
all right.
Main phase 1. I will cast Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
All right. So the Creature Collection of Star City Games, we have our newest edition. This is Fur Queen and a Country.
All right. I want you to tell me, is this the Fur Queen?
I was wondering the exact same thing.
Or we see 2 pairs of legs next to it. Maybe they left out the Oxford commas and we have this little fella here is Fur next to Queen and Country.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that would make sense because this font doesn't have commas in it. So
exactly. So it has an ampersand, but that's
right.
Maybe commas are not in the wheelhouse. And
right.
This is a good question. These are the 3 stooges of the Creature Collection: Fur, Queen, and Country.
So the Country, because there's the legs on the right side as well.
Right,
so one of them's the Queen and the other. Okay.
Yeah.
That one's Country.
Yeah, we got Fur flanked over here by Queen and Country.
Well, you can get this on playmats and sleeves and in bundles at
go.starcitygames.com/creaturecollection.
Yeah,
we're doing it.
So, all right. So we saw on Abe's side, we assume Prison Realm and Lava Coil, and I would even suspect Lyra Dawnbringer.
Oh, yeah. Lyra's incredible here. You know what that card does? Blocks.
Yeah, it's better than most Planeswalkers.
That card is basically a Planeswalker, but better than Planeswalkers.
On Shawn's side, there's not that much I actually like here. He's got his own Planeswalkers, Ajani and Gideon. I suppose he has Dovin's Veto, Disdainful Stroke. There's enough... Dovin's Veto, for sure. There's enough Planeswalkers here to use that. I'm not sure about Disdainful Stroke.
You're probably going to have to bring in the island if you're bringing in many more blue spells.
Yeah.
It's possible you want to look into something like Gideon Blackblade, since it's a little bit harder to interact with that card as a creature than something like Benelish Marshal.
I guess Abe's deck does not have Planeswalker removal and does not attack very much. So based on that, Gideon Blackblade seems pretty good.
Right. It also lets your X-ones attack into Sarkhan.
It does let your X-ones attack into Sarkhan. Sarkhan's been very good in this matchup.
That's true.
6 cards for Shawn. It's got Disdainful Stroke, Teferi, Hero, History of Benalia. with Azorius, it's one of those hands where he's got his sideboard cards and high-end cards, but nothing early, and that can really be a problem for the deck.
Yeah, this hand does not look like an Azorius aggro sample hand.
Right. You have so many cards like Benelish Marshal, Venerated Luxodon, and Legion's Landing that care about that early critical mass.
Right, and things like Teferi are going to have value here. Being able to repulse something like the Dragon token a Sarkhan makes is a huge game.
Abe does have a Deafening Clarion in his hand, and he probably did not expect that on turn 3 there would just be nothing on the battlefield yet.
It's hard for him to complain. It's like he got a 0-mana Deafening Clarion.
Here we go, Narset Parter of Veils.
Tank, put 4 on the bottom.
Grabs Shock. When I first read this card, the only thing I could think of was Part the Water Veil. I just need to share that.
Wrong plane.
No, maybe Narset was part of that.
I mean, she's able to go to whatever plane she wants. She walks them after all.
Right. But it is her job is to part veils.
Ooh, we may get to see the Wombo combo. The old make a second night. Teferi Time Raveler, bounce your own history of Benalia.
Ooh, I do like that. Second Narset activation for Abe finds Lava Coil. And with Narset down to 1, there's not actually that many reasons for him to protect this Narset. I suppose it can turn into a dragon at some point when there's Teferi. It helps Mox Ambers, but...
Well, the thing about it is it does kind of help that snowballing we talked about before.
Yeah. Teferi Time Raveler, the play from Abe, leaving up his Shock. He bounces that Night token. Both Planeswalkers kept.
And just having a Planeswalker on the battlefield definitely helps whenever you're playing cards like Sarkhan that are just going basically to attack later.
And I guess this does mean, right, that Shawn can't really make his own Teferi yet, because Narset's passive ability can only draw 1 card per turn.
Correct.
There's that Teferi in Shawn's hand. I don't know that he'd like to find something else to do until Narset is gone. Interesting. He's got Disdainful Stroke in hand. You see him shuffling that one up to the front. He's got another History of Benalia, Disdainful Stroke, Teferi Time Raveler.
And, this is the effect that these Planeswalkers have when they just stay on the battlefield, right? So Shawn's Teferi can't draw extra cards. Disdainful Stroke doesn't have a text box.
Right.
This is exactly what the Super Friends deck thrives on.
Disdainful Stroke probably has a text box in the sense that, because the Teferi's in play. Yeah, because they're all enchantments. They're actually turning off multiple cards in his hand.
Exactly. We're looking to see Shawn, who mulliganed to 6, basically with 3-ish invalid cards in his hand.
These blue 3-mana Planeswalkers, these abilities they have on them matter. Which seems like both players know about the Shock. So, Teferi from Shawn, and in response, Shock will take care of the token. Abe doing it while he can. No real reason. Shawn's going to pick up his own history, but does not get a card off it, right? Do we need to? We need to stop there. We're going to call it. Yeah.
I don't. Oh, did he draw the card?
He did draw the card. We know that it's a Plains, and we have video of that. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how a judge is going to resolve this one.
Okay.
In paper tournaments, the fix oftentimes is that he will get to look at his hand and select a card to put. His opponent would look at his hand and select which card is put back. Now, that we will let you know how the judge chooses to resolve this situation.
They're just relaying all the facts to the judge here. This is kind of the thing. Like, this is what judges are here to do, right? Like, it's not an inherently negative thing when a judge gets involved. They're here to just make sure everyone gets to play a clean game of Magic.
Yeah. So, I mean, my read on the line here then is that Shawn had forgotten about the Narset ability when he went for this.
Right. Either way, it seems
Yeah.
like it's still likely the correct play. He didn't have that many cards that he could play with in his hand. So this at least turns the in-hand Teferi into an in-hand History of Benalia.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a play you're happy to make,
Right.
but it is a play.
Interestingly enough, actually, so what the judge is going to do is the judge is going to do the paper ruling, and this is actually some nuance. So though we knew the card he drew, can't really use coverage footage in making it as the decision according to the floor rules. So the rule is Abe gets to look at Shawn's hand and select which card is going to be put back into the deck. Now the interesting part is that he cannot select the History of Benalia because it is known that that wasn't the card that Shawn drew. Even though it was in his hand when he illegally drew a card, the judge is ruling Abe cannot select it. Doesn't really matter because Shawn has another one in his hand, so the net result is the same, but I think it's kind of an interesting difference that happened here.
Right, and here we also see that the card actually just gets shuffled back in rather than put back
Correct.
on top and left there. That way the two players don't get to operate with that information.
Yeah, the illegal action was that Shawn drew a card. So you go back to before the illegal action occurred. And before the illegal action occurred, Shawn had a randomized deck. So you put a card back and then you give Shawn a randomized deck.
Exactly. Well,
And we move on. And actually, Shawn, so the card, he did get the planes out of the deal. But we go back to Abe, and now here is Lyra Dawnbringer. Disdainful Stroke sitting in Shawn's hand. Yeah, these Narset and Teferi are being problems.
all right. Well, step one, we've rolled up
Yeah.
Teferi.
Yeah, I mean, Shawn basically needs Conclave Tribunal here, I think.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Deputy of Detention, if it's in his list, would work. I don't think he's I think that's moved
the
out,
bad
right?
news. No, there is no deputy of detention.
How do you feel about History of Benalia and Dauntless Bodyguard? I don't think that's going to be enough.
No, I feel like Corrigan's about to give Shawn a history lesson here.
Another Lyra in Abe's hand, just in case the first one had gotten answered. And mentioned before, we saw how Abe got snowballed on in the first game. We're kind of seeing the other side of the coin here. When his deck gets going, it gets unstoppable.
Well,
Sarkon, Planeswalker number 3.
ooh, it appears this is oh no, he's still thinking about the ability.
Ooh, see if they're all going to go dragon form.
Right.
I like that. I like that ability on Sarkon.
Does he have a shock in his hand? He may have mistapped in not leaving up Mobilized District. Oh, we've realized.
Yeah. It shouldn't cost him because of how snowballed the game state is with that kind of detail play is unlikely to punish, but I think you're right. He missed something there, but it shouldn't be of too much consequence.
Right, it is unlikely to matter.
Yeah, one of the things I like about these style decks is that the macro play oftentimes matters a lot more when you look at what players are doing. As far as, choosing which spell to play this turn is going to be a way bigger decision as opposed to tapping correctly and sequencing correctly.
Oh, sure, absolutely. This is just a spot where it's a free 0 mana 3/3 with Vigilance.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a miss. Just the play. Yeah, the play style of the deck is going to, it doesn't live and die on that Razor's Edge. As we see here, a swing in for 14. And ignoring the Teferi, just hitting Shawn down to 6.
No big deal.
Yeah, no.
Don't make it weird.
Actually, correct. Oh, great. Those are 4/4 dragons it makes. So, overstated. 13. Shawn down to 7. He's scooping anyway. So, we'll go to a third game.
And the big difference between those two games, I just want to look at that Adonto Vanguard that Shawn had game 1. That just completely made game 1, and it wasn't their game 2. And
yeah, it was a huge difference.
Shawn just really wasn't in that game. He really needs to try and find some lower to the ground cards and maybe lean a little bit less on things like Disdainful Stroke.
Yeah, I mean, is it enough that you want to just board out the Disdainful Strokes?
It's tough. It's so bad against Teferi that I'm not sure I would love it on the draw. It might be better now that Shawn's on the play, but traditionally when you're on the play, you want to focus a little bit more on trying to attack and be aggressive.
Yeah, I think I agree. Looking at the Planeswalkers Ape has, 4 Narset, 4 Teferi, 3 Saheeli. That's 11 3-mana Planeswalkers. So those aren't even valid targets. There are 7 cards that could counter, and it requires Teferi not to be in play. That just feels like you're asking for, and you have to 2 mana up. It just feels like there's too many conditions.
Right. Instead of doing all that, you could just try to kill them, right?
You could, whatever creature you sideboarded out for it, you could just cast that creature.
Yeah, it's ugly because if we look at it on the other side of things, these are cards that Corrigan knows the matchup, and he's going to be looking for cards like Deafening Clarion,
right?
Which do punish the creature draws sometimes, but you're not going to win if you try and go forever and get into a value fight with a deck that's a pile of value mythics.
Yeah. Now, I still love Dovin's Veto in the matchup.
Oh, absolutely. That one's way
That one's great. Because that one counters all 18 of the Planeswalkers, not just 7 of them.
Right, and more specifically, it counters Deafening Clarion.
Yeah, which is great. Additional Teferis, I think, are even acceptable from Shawn's deck.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, on the play especially, I'm more interested in them.
Right. And there's certainly a point where turning off Corrigan, being able to just use burn spells at instant speed has value. Yeah, just having him pick up a card. I think the way I was starting to see Teferi, it's reminding me of Reflector Mage in the way of a lot of times. Sometimes you'd hold Reflector Mage to try to wait and hit something specific with it, but most of the time the correct way to play Reflector Mage was to jam it immediately and unsummon whatever. Yep.
And I feel like that's the way I want to play Teferi. I'll cast it, bounce, I don't know, look at your cards, pick which one ever costs the most mana, bounce that one, move on.
Yeah, and that's especially, with Reflector Mage, you just wanted to get as many attacks in as possible, but with Teferi, playing him earlier is going to translate to more unsummons over the course of the game if you just get to untap with Teferi.
If you get to Teferi, if you get to go after that first minus turn Teferi, build up to a second activation, that just feels like cheating.
Yeah, I mean, that's a card that usually costs, 6 mana or something to unsummon and draw 2? Or unsummon twice and draw 2?
Oh, goodness, if they had a card that was unsummon twice and draw 2 cards, 6 mana sorcery?
Yeah.
That sounds about right. That'd still be a heck of a card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, now I'm thinking about if I would play that card in Constructed. Yeah, I might.
Probably not at 6, at 5.
Oh, at 5 I'm definitely playing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember when decks were playing Baral's Expertise? Cards like that? Just out of...
Oh, yeah.
This effect is really on par with that, probably better.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that it replaces itself is just lets you keep going. When a lot of unsummons, the drawback is you're kind of exchanging cards for temporary onboard advantages. We call that tempo.
Yeah.
But
even a Super Friends mirror match, it's be like, here's my sorcery, pick up your Planeswalkers, I'll draw some cards. Yeah, that'd be insane.
Yeah, we normally refer to that as time warp.
Yeah. This Teferi, we're going to be seeing a lot of Teferi for the next couple of years. And I know we'd already been saying that for a while, but now we mean it in another Teferi, which seems every bit as good as the first one.
I've done this hero thing before.
Is that what the new one says?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to be like, that's not what Control Teferi says.
No, his is something like, I can't stand by any longer.
But then he does stand by a lot longer. He just sticks around,
Don't make me do this.
20 minutes later, the game's still going.
I'm not ready for that yet.
There we go. I like that quote. That was good. That one really exemplifies how I feel when I'm playing those decks. I'm not ready for this game to be over yet.
Ooh, are you ready for the Loyal Squire? The eager cadet?
The Law-Rune Enforcer from Shawn. Looks like we had a mulligan again from Dhaliwal.
Yeah, they're both on 6 here.
Law-Rune Enforcer, one of the upgrades for the 1-drops for the Azorius aggro deck. You have the 12 you always play. Legion's Landing, Sky Marcher, Aspirant, Dauntless Bodyguard. Usually it's
This is
18.
a great setup against Deafening Clarion.
Dauntless Bodyguard, Dauntless Bodyguard.
They're all so protected.
Well, he still would lose two of them. Yeah.
Look, you get to choose which one you keep. It's so much protection. But I believe there's a Dovin's Veto hiding out in Dhaliwal's hand.
Well, I love that. Just keep them off balance.
Huge.
Do you hold it for sweeper? Do you just play it, or do you just whatever Abe plays on turn 3, you counter?
Yeah, basically whatever happens on the 3rd turn, I'm very interested in countering.
Lightning Strike takes care of Dauntless Bodyguard, and I love it. That's the middle Dauntless Bodyguard, so Shawn correctly keeps it alive.
Right, and I really, really like, actually, let's think about this Enforcer for a second. That doesn't tap anything in Corrigan's deck other than an animated Planeswalker and the card Lyra.
You just need your one drops.
He wants to attack. He
really wants to attack. Here's another Law Rune Enforcer, but no 3rd land. Dovin's Veto is down. If Abe has a Clarion, it's getting just jammed right now.
Show me.
Does not look like he has it. I think what we're looking at is Saheeli on one as one option, and Tapland Removal Spell is the other option. It's close, because there's only 4 power, so Saheeli would stick around.
Yeah, this is definitely tough. The fact that the Enforcers can't tap the tokens as well is not nothing.
On this board, though, with all these X1s, with like the Dauntless Bodyguard being X1, I'd like to keep the Saheeli around if possible.
Yeah, honestly, I'm leaning towards just wanting the Lava Coil, because Saheeli's so strong if you get to double spell the turn that you cast her.
Yeah. So Abe's coming to the same conclusion. He's going to Lava Coil the protected Law Rune Enforcer. Shawn will let it get exiled. Tap land.
Smart on Corrigan's part, because he knows that Shawn wants to have more power on the battlefield and likely won't protect it, but wants his sweepers to be more effective later on.
Yeah. Well, what I like here is normally you'd shoot down the bodyguard, but because Abe has Saheeli in hand, he wants to keep an X1 on the board.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's well done by Corrigan. So he went for the Saheeli. That was his payoff play, and he had the opt in hand. However, Dovin had something to say about it. It was vetoed into the graveyard.
Sure does counter a lot of spells for something that can't be countered. Kind of one-sided.
Yeah. Sky Marcher Aspirant for Shawn. He's had control of the game for a while. His creatures are a bit on the small side, and now Sarkhan makes a dragon. Shawn cannot.
Patrick Sullivan.
You can't tap the dragon token either. Only one creature can attack into it. But is this Conclave Tribunal? It is, and this is a huge tribunal. It takes care of the dragon. There's no dragon to protect Sarkhan. The attack works.
Wow.
Yeah, that was some cleanup.
That's a turn.
Great exchange there for Shawn. Abe trying to recover will go for opt.
This is definitely a spot where Shawn's very ahead on the battlefield, but all it takes is a Clarion, another Sarkhan, or something like that to even things up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little picky, right? Because Lyra doesn't work here because of Law Rune Enforcers. Or the same, the Law Rune Enforcer still?
Right.
But yeah, a Clarion will be very clean. 3
another
mana.
Sarkhan.
It's gonna be Teferi, Time Raveler. Draws a card into... Looks like another Teferi for next turn.
Either that, maybe a Narset. It's hard to tell.
Another draw spell at the least.
Right. Some 3 mana something.
We'll see whether Shawn even takes a turn off to attack down Teferi.
And it looks like there's a Spell Pierce hiding out in Corrigan's hand.
He does 1 damage in, 2 damage out. Plays another 2 on Shawn. Still 3 cards in hand, but he's definitely exposed to Clarion.
Lyra, ain't it?
No, it's one of the few ways Law Rune Enforcer is live in this matchup. But it's a big one.
Heads up on Shawn's part.
Yeah. There's Lyra from Abe. Now there'll be a turn off from attacks because Shawn's going to want to be tapping this on the end step so it can never attack back.
There is a Conclave Tribunal hiding out in Shawn's hand, and if he gets greedy with it, then it is possible this Lyra gets to attack.
Good on Shawn to not make that play.
Smart. Definitely heads up.
No need to do that just yet. His hand has so much action. Right now we have a Johnny, History of Benalia, plenty of things waiting. Here is Narset, Parter of Veils.
Is it going to do an Augur of Bolus impression?
Oh, no. Oh, could not. Yeah, snaps off Deafening Clarion, and Abe has it with Spell Pierce backup. He is feeling confident. Yeah, sweeps up the team. It's a no Dovin's Veto mana up. That's a game-winning play.
My gosh.
Yeah, this is a huge turnaround. One Law Rune Enforcer. Okay.
That buys time.
But yeah, Abe's going to connect first. That's the problem. And
all right, well.
Yeah, his deck you mentioned how well his Jeskai Super Friends snowballs, and Abe has done it. Here is Sarkon going to plus, we'll see. Yeah, minuses to make a dragon. Lyra attacks Shawn to 13. Next turn, it's going to be lethal.
Bunch uncastables in Shawn's hand there.
Yeah, just missed the lands for too long. He had a good advantage on the board. But Sarkon, here's Teferi, making sure Shawn can't cast anything that would disrupt this.
And
makes everything a dragon and swings. Shawn's going to tap.
Well, going to 1.
Yeah, there we go. Going to 1.
It's in the bag.
We're going to have to put some loyalty on that Teferi Time Raveler. There we go. Bounce the Law Rune Enforcer. And that should do it. Shawn extends the hand, and Abe Corrigan here stays undefeated, moving on to 5-0.
That last game, that was a